Why did Allah take away your desire? That thought creeps into your mind late at night, when everything feels still, maybe too still. You grab your phone out of habit, scrolling through the same clips you once craved, but none of it moves you anymore, not even the things you swore you'd never open again. This isn't just guilt now, it's emptiness. You make du'a after wudu, whispering, "Oh Allah, please bring me back." But the quiet remains. At first, you think it's a blessing, a freedom from temptation. You even convince yourself it must mean you've grown spiritually. But as the days turn into weeks, that stillness begins to feel heavier, like an unanswered question no one else seems to raise. Am I broken? Is Allah punishing me? Or is there another wisdom hidden in this silence? Here's the reality. You're not the only one. And this conversation is bigger than lost desire. It's about the stillness Allah sometimes places in a person's heart, a stillness that feels confusing, frightening, but maybe protective. If you're here because you feel afraid, unsure, or desperate for clarity, stay with me. By the end, you'll see 6 reasons why this quiet may actually be a shield, not a punishment. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, just an open conversation about a pain many carry, but few dare to speak about. So let's begin with the first reason, the one your body was trying to tell you long before your heart admitted it. You reached burnout, fighting a struggle you never named. Reason 1, you burned out from a battle you wouldn't acknowledge. It didn't collapse overnight. It never does. It began on that night when you swore you'd never slip again. You closed the tabs, cleared the history, whispered in your dark room after wudu, "Oh Allah, just let this be the last time." But by the week's end, there you were again. Same place, same shame. So you pushed harder. You forced yourself up for Fajr half awake, avoided your phone, skipped over clips your friends sent, dodged conversations that could trigger you. You thought starving the desire would kill it, but it only suffocated you instead. Months went by in the same loop, resist, relapse, regret, and each cycle drained more from you, more strength, more hope, more belief that you could ever change. Until one morning, something felt different. Nothing. No temptation, no relief, no feeling at all. And that emptiness scared you. Deep inside, you wondered, did I finally break something inside myself? But here's the part no one dares admit, especially in Muslim spaces. Fighting the same war, alone, year after year, without ever addressing its root, eventually brings you to one place: burnout. You didn't lose your drive because you were weak. You lost it because your heart couldn't carry the endless shame, secrecy, and silent war anymore. Allah sees the battles no one else does. And sometimes, instead of making you fight harder, He simply removes the battlefield. Not as a punishment, but as mercy. Think about what the Prophet Muhammad taught. This religion is ease, and whoever makes it too heavy won't be able to keep up. You tried fixing yourself alone, believing pain was proof of sincerity. But Allah never asked you to carry this struggle by yourself. Your soul was never built to survive endless secrecy and constant guilt. This silence, this sudden numbness, isn't failure. It's your heart finally breathing. Allah paused your desire, not because you were failing, but because you couldn't admit how worn out you were. You asked for purity, you begged for relief, and you thought relief would feel calm, not hollow. But sometimes relief feels exactly like this: stillness, space, quiet. You aren't ruined, you're just exhausted. And maybe this is Allah giving your heart room to rest, recover, and heal before desire returns pure and safe, ready for a fresh start. But what if there's another layer behind the silence? What if your heart wasn't only fighting inner battles, but external ones too? Battles that didn't start within you, but began from a screen. Reason 2. You overstimulated your brain until your drive collapsed. Nobody really says this, but your brain doesn't have unlimited capacity. When you overload it with flashes of beauty, scandal, dopamine, even without ever stepping into a haram relationship, your mind keeps score. Every reel, every explore page, every comment section you lingered on, knowing what it would do to your thoughts, it all adds up. And here's the truth people avoid saying. Sometimes your desire doesn't vanish because you became spiritually pure or medically ill. It fades because your brain drowned. There's no space left to feel. Have you ever been so overstimulated that your body just shuts down? You scroll past something haram, and instead of guilt, there's just emptiness. A marriage proposal call comes, and instead of excitement, you're tired. And then the panic sets in. Am I broken? Will I ever feel again? Did I ruin myself before I even began? But stop here, because this is where your ego lies. You're not ruined. Your heart isn't broken. It's buried. Buried under algorithms, under dopamine rushes, under clutter no one taught you to clear. Even science now admits overstimulation causes numbness. But Islam already warned. Indeed, and that is a reminder for whoever has a heart, or listens while present in mind. If you can't feel anymore, maybe you were never truly present with your heart in the first place. So this crash you're feeling, it isn't random. It's your system shutting down before your soul mistakes addiction for love. You didn't lose your desire, you silenced it. And that's not punishment, it's protection. Reason 3. Allah had to numb you to safeguard you. You didn't expect this flat line. You thought you'd feel guilty, anxious, or tempted again. But this nothingness, that's what unsettled you the most. You were so used to the cycle: fall, regret, woo-do, promise, repeat, that when it suddenly stopped, you didn't know whether to rejoice or fear. You told yourself, maybe this is it. Maybe I fix myself. But then came the doubts. Why doesn't that person move your heart anymore? Why does that haram page you once checked out of habit now feel like static? Why are your DMs not just unread, but emotionally blank? And here's the hidden struggle. What you really missed wasn't the sin itself or its aftermath. You missed the rush, that fleeting jolt of feeling alive. Now it's just quiet. And that quiet scared you because you wondered if maybe you'd gone too far, if maybe Allah broke you as punishment. But pause. What if you're not broken? What if Allah unplugged something before it consumed you whole? Because some temptations don't end because we defeated them. They end because Allah cuts the power out of mercy. It's like when you're too deep, too entangled to leave on your own. And Allah, out of sheer kindness, doesn't wait for you to crash. He numbs you so you don't set fire to your soul. The Prophet Muhammad said, "If you feel no shame, do as you wish." That wasn't only a warning, it was a diagnosis. When shame fades, desire runs unchecked, and the soul bleeds in unseen ways. So Allah steps in. He gives you mercy in the form of numbness, not rejection, not punishment. A pause, a chance to heal without tearing yourself apart. This silence you fear isn't a failure. It's divine first aid. And the fact that you're here, still asking, still searching, is proof you're not disconnected. You're being protected. The fire hasn't died. It's just quarantined by the one who created it. Reason 4. A medical condition was hiding beneath your guilt. You thought it was just a sin issue. You blamed the nights you slipped, the late clicks, the mixed conversations, the skip through scenes you didn't fully watch but still lingered long enough to feel. So when your desire disappeared, you assumed it was God punishing you. And when it stayed gone, fear grew. You searched online, you cried about it, you begged God to forgive you for whatever you thought had triggered it. But here's the part almost nobody around you will say. Sometimes it's not your soul at all. It's your body. It's your hormones, your thyroid, your medication, your anemia, your birth control, your prolactin levels, your undiagnosed PCOS. For men, it can be the performance anxiety no one admits, the dopamine crashes, the guilt buried under a mask of masculinity. But shame is louder than science, so no one explains it that way. We just sit alone, convinced we're cursed, when in reality the body had been sending signals for months. We were too busy blaming our hearts to notice the cries of the system. That doesn't erase accountability. It means the full solution doesn't only come through prayer. Maybe it begins with a blood test. Maybe healing is both physical and spiritual, not one or the other. And that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The prophet said, "There is no disease, except that God also created its cure." That includes the ones you've been too embarrassed to ask about. So if you've been trapped in a cycle of guilt, begging God to fix something you won't even let a doctor check, maybe it's time to change the approach. Healing doesn't begin with hating yourself. It begins with knowing you're worth the effort. Even the prophet encouraged the sick to seek medicine, not because they lacked faith, but because their lives were worth saving. Reason 5. God was testing your patience in the most private way. Some tests roar, others whisper under your skin. This one, it's the kind only you see, carried quietly every single day, on your pillow, in your throat, in the way you scroll past something forbidden and pretend it didn't sting. It's the test of wanting and not receiving. And unlike other trials, this one isn't loud or visible. There's no funeral, no betrayal, no headline moment, just an absence. A silence where desire once lived. And that's what makes it heavier. Because when others notice your pain, they comfort you. But when no one sees it, you begin questioning your own faith. Why does God give everyone else what I'm begging for in secret? Yet some scholars remind us, when your longing goes unmet, but your obedience remains steady, that isn't neglect, it's elevation. Think of Prophet Yusuf, young, handsome, tempted in secret. And yet, he said, "Prison is dearer to me than what they call me to." That wasn't just willpower, it was surrender. So if your fire feels gone, but you're still obeying, still striving, still pulling your soul forward to stay clean, then maybe it's not about what you've lost. Maybe it's about what God is shaping in you. Because patience isn't just waiting, it's painful loyalty. Reason 6. The prayer you made needed you emptied first. You asked for strength. You pleaded for clarity. You begged for a love that was pure. You cried in prostration for God to pull you out of what was forbidden and lead you to what was real. And then, suddenly, your desire disappeared. Not just lust, the whole pull, the fire, the craving, it went quiet. At first you thought it was shame. Then you blamed stress. But another question rose. What if this was the answer all along and you just didn't recognize it? Because here's the truth people rarely tell you. Sometimes God answers by removing everything that blocks what you prayed for. including feelings you thought you needed. That person you were hooked on, gone. That routine that was draining you, interrupted. That temptation you kept falling into, muted without warning. Why? Because to take you where you asked, something in you had to die first. Sometimes God clears your path not by adding, but by stripping away. He doesn't just open the right door, he bolts the wrong ones shut so you can't crawl back. You wanted healing, but imagined it would feel warm. You wanted marriage, but assumed you'd feel whole first. You wanted purpose, but didn't expect to be emptied out to the bone before it arrived. But prayer isn't only about receiving. It's about becoming someone capable of carrying the answer. And sometimes that process begins with silence, where desire once lived. So maybe this wasn't an error. Maybe it wasn't punishment. Maybe it wasn't about being broken. Maybe it was God giving you the one thing you didn't ask for, but desperately needed: stillness. Because when your body goes silent, your patterns finally speak. You start noticing how much of your old life was built on chasing feelings instead of truth. How many late-night slips were just loneliness disguised as need. How often you called it love when it was only dopamine dressed up. And that's when it hits. Desire itself isn't the enemy, but unchecked desire. That's how you drown while calling it swimming. So if you've lost your drive, if everything feels flat or strangely calm, don't panic. Don't bury yourself in search engines. Don't let society trick you into thinking stillness equals failure. Sometimes God takes something away to rebuild it stronger, not just in your body, but in your habits, your focus, your grip on faith. And when He gives it back, and if He does, it will return in a way that fits the new version of you He's been shaping in the silence. Until then, guard your quiet like it's sacred. Because maybe, just maybe, it isn't weakness at all. It's a divine whisper that you're being rewired, not to lose desire, but to finally deserve it. So if you've been afraid of this stillness, of what it means, of how long it will last, leave a small prayer. Not for desire itself to rush back, but for your heart to be prepared when it does. Even something as simple as, God, make me pure in private the way I appear in public. Someone might stumble on that prayer the night they nearly gave up. And if this message reached you at the right moment, maybe it wasn't just a message. It was part of your rewiring. Until next time, peace be upon you. And if you're still here, still reading, you already know. Share it or don't. Keep it or pass it on. Just don't forget the lesson. Because sometimes the quietest moments are the clearest wake-up calls from God.